Hey guys, what's going on? Watomarmelon back again with the market watch for February 10th. So hopefully you guys are having a good day. As always, if you enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, and use the affiliate links in the description below for eBay and such. Really does help out. So we're going to start off with a card that I've really been talking about a whole lot in a lot of my market watches. And again, I'm not buying these things. I would have bought it already at this price if I had needed any more of them. The point is that we have a vintage near mint first edition card in Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End. It's one that I believe to be very iconic. However, I suppose we could debate whether it's iconic or how iconic it is. I just think most people would accept, and most collectors would accept, that this card is pretty important to the card game and certainly should hold value. It's somewhat rare. No one is opening up Invasion of Chaos boxes that are first edition anymore, and it's just generally a pretty desirable card. It's the first printing. It's in a secret rare, which back in 2004 when it was printed, that was a pretty high rarity, so it's generally desirable. Now, why do I bring this card up so much? There is a near mint first edition copy for $155. Now it goes up after that, but for me, if I see a card like this that has a lot of history behind it, it's the first printing in near mint first edition, and it's $155, why would I spend money collecting modern cards? Now, I don't play the card game, I just collect it, but when I see stuff like this, even though I have this card and I don't need more of them and I'm not going to buy it, I just look at this and I say, how can I justify spending $150 on a modern card when one of the most iconic cards in the series is currently in near mint first edition, sitting at 150 something dollars? So that's kind of where I'm at with, I always come back to this card because it's, for me, indicative of how the market is performing, in the fact that I think I would rather spend 150 something dollars on this card than 150 on a modern card. And it's just hard for me to spend money when I see stuff like this. I'll talk a bit more about sort of my philosophy and my opinions on some of the stuff that's happening in the modern market. But the first card that I want to look at beyond this Chaos Emperor card that I always rant about and talk about is Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever. I think this card is really, really nice. Like, I like it a lot. I think it's quite the incredible card. I'm a huge fan of it. I think Yubel is it's a fun monster from the GX series, and it only ever got a super rare in Phantom Darkness, I think. I think it was a super rare. It did have an ultimate rare in the OCG, which looks incredible, but it didn't get the love and the collectability that I think it would have had it had a higher rarity. If that was a secret rare out of Phantom Darkness, I think it would be a very expensive and very collectible card. So it's a little bit of a shame that it wasn't, but I guess they wanted to make it more accessible. Regardless, this card is really, really nice. I like how it looks, and also I think the foiling for a quarter century secret rare will fit it quite nicely. This, Phantom Darkness, or Nightmare, just came out, and so it's $100. I can't imagine that it holds $100 unless this is somehow playable on a deck. But this is one to watch out for. Once, the luster of Phantom Nightmare falls out, this is a card to look at to pick up, because I think it has a really nice artwork and it's generally quite cool. However, my target price on a card like this for me to pick it up would probably be close to $30, and obviously there's a huge disparity between $30 and $100, but it's something that I would consider once it reaches lower prices. Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, this is one that I just kind of like the artwork. I'm a huge fan of dragon cards, and this is kind of an action shot because it's shooting, a laser beam out of its mouth, basically. Cool card. I think this one's pretty playable, I believe, and it's $100, so definitely not something I would buy at that price. For me, I would target closer to like $20 on something like this for me as a collector to just pick up, and so this is something that I'll talk about now, and then I'll probably revisit in a year's time as something that I might pick up for my collection. Once it's gotten a couple of reprints, once it's no longer viable in the competitive format, that's when I start to target stuff. So for me, I like to talk about the new stuff, but I also, I don't buy the new stuff when it right when it comes out most of the time. I just, I wait a year, wait for players to say, okay, I no longer want to play with this card, and so it's kind of nice. They need money to buy the newest deck, and I can help them recoup some of the money from the deck by, creating some demand for the cards that are no longer super playable. Here is a card that is not playable. It is Magicians of Bonds and Unity. As I've said before, I am collecting the set. I'm going to definitely finish it. This is the third out of 4 that will come out. I think the red is the best looking one so far. I'm assuming the next one's blue. I don't know. Maybe it's purple or something else. I forget. But Phantom Nightmare has the red one. It looks really nice. But this card, just looking at Age of Overlord, which was a very, very strong set, that card is currently at $40. And so for me, I would wait before it reaches, $40. I think Phantom Nightmare is not as strong as Age of Overlord. From what I can tell, I'm not a player, but, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I think that it's not as strong of a set, still a pretty strong set. So I would target this at a little bit less than $40. For me, this is something that at 35-ish is going to be a buy. Right now it's 61. I'm nowhere close to that, but we'll see where it ends up. This is another fun one. It's Horus the Black Flame Deity. Again, I think this is a pretty competitive archetype. I don't know if this specific card is super playable. However, it's a really cool looking card. Horus is an iconic card. Horus the Black Flame Dragon the Late was introduced in Soul of the Duelist, which is, I think, my favorite set of all time. And so I'm generally a huge fan of Horus cards. They're very expensive, but this modern copy is pretty nice. Definitely not going to buy at 45, but it's something for me that I would target closer to 20 or so. Now we get into the rant that I was going to make for this video. It's basically Konami is kind of taking some of the fun away from modern collecting for me. In fun, it's more that it sucks to pick cards up and then have an identical copy of a card printed in short succession. And it's unfortunate because it's not as if they print an alternative artwork or they are printing a different rarity. That's fine with me. And I'm a huge fan of reprints. I want to stress that. Reprints are necessary for the card game. The most important people are not collectors like me. They are the players. They're the people who need the cards to play the game. That's what keeps the game alive, as well as the small card shops that'll host tournaments and the like. That's what matters. And so I think it's very important to reprint cards. But what sucks for me as a collector is when they print an identical copy of a card that was meant to be collectible. Lightning Storm, it has an ultra rare already. And it's great, if in Rarity Collection they wanted to print a super ultra secret rare, platinum secret rare, and prismatic ultimate rare, that's what I think Rarity Collection should have been. Introduce the platinum secret rare and the prismatic ultimate rare and have that be a chase rarity. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. But with the quarter century secret rare being identical to the Starlight rare, this is more or less just the same thing as the Starlight. You can see this is actually doing reasonably well for itself. It's hovering around $20, $25. But you look at the Starlight rare, and the Starlight rare is not doing well. As you can see, this thing has been plummeting for some time. It was way above 330 at one point, and you can see it's all the way down to below 90. Recent sales at $95, and there's currently still a playset listed at 90, tons of sellers lined up at 90. I can only imagine that this thing is going to continue to go down in price. And this is not a card I have. I don't have personal skin in the game with this specific card. It's just you watch something like this and they completely rip all the value out of something that at one time was very collectible. This is a card that I thought was really, really cool. Specifically because it was an iconic playable card and it had a very high rarity printing and Starlight rare, and I thought that this is something people might come back to years from now as a collectible and say, this is something I want in my collection because it's an iconic card and it's super hard to get rarity. Now, because there are so many reprints that look identical to it, I don't know where it stands. Again, Lightning Storm, they printed it in Prismatic Collector Rare. This thing is dirt cheap. You can get it for $3. There already was a Collector Rare out of King's Court. Again, you can watch this thing basically just fall off a cliff essentially after some time. You can see that near mint copies are now $13. It just, at one point this was an $85 card. I don't know what the necessity to reprint this in the exact, nearly identical rarity was. It would be great if this was a super rare and everyone could get it for $1, but I don't know what the point of printing it as Prismatic Collector Rare was. Next up, we have Iris Sword Soul, quarter century secret rare. This is a $4 card, $4 card. And it has a Starlight Rare that at one point was one of the chase cards of Dawn of Majesty. You can see that it was doing quite well until Rarity Collection got announced, and now you can see the Starlight Rare is $40. To a certain extent, it's nice because I get to collect a lot more when this stuff's cheaper, but it takes a bit away when, basically I'm waiting for the card to get printed in an identical rarity before I ever buy it. And at that point, no longer can players of the game who have this high rarity card sell it off to me at a reasonable price. It just gets printed into the ground, and then I don't want to buy it at a price that's more than what I can buy it at market for. And so it just sort of tumbles, and players can't get much of their money back because it's just been printed in an identical copy. So that's just my general philosophy. And also, this card's identical almost to quarter century secret rare. This one costs 10 times more. Are you really going to spend $40 on this card? I don't know. Not me. And then we still have more examples. Baron de Feur, Prismatic Collector Rare. This had a collector rare. The Prismatic one is $5. This collector rare at one point was hundreds of dollars. I think it was over $200 at one point. $36 right here. I imagine it's only going to continue to go down. You can see how quickly, you can see it was almost $300 at one point. Now, I think it's ridiculous to pay $300 for a card like this, but it would have been nice to have this as a super rare. Again, where it's super playable, everyone can get a copy if they want to play it, but having those collectible rarities, it's unfortunate when they just take all the value out of it. Next up, we have Effect Veiler, quarter century secret rare. This is one that's doing very well for itself as a quarter century secret rare, $55. But again, there was a Starlight Rare once upon a time and an Eternity Code. This was one of the most expensive cards, and it was one that people really, really loved as a modern collectible. $800 was the market price at one point in time. There are sales at well below $300. And I can't imagine that it's going to recover a whole lot from there. I guess, the lowest listed near mint is $275, but I don't know where people go from here. Are people really going to spend money on the high-end collectibles? And this is unfortunate because now when there are sets that aren't rarity collection, like there are collector rare sets, there are cards out of these collector rare sets I want. But why would I spend my money on them when they're just going to get Prismatic Collector Rares in Rarity Collection 3, and maybe even Rarity Collection 2. And so I'm kind of at this point where I don't want to spend too much money because it's like, I'll just wait. I can just wait it out. Oh, I do have even more examples. Pot of Prosperity, quarter century secret rare. This one had a Starlight Rare, as many know, that was very expensive. Quarter century secrets, like $45. Pot of Prosperity, Starlight Rare out of Blazing Vortex. At one point, was well into the 600s. And right now, you can get some foreign copies for a bit less. Here's someone in the US for $210, and then verified sellers at $235. So they're just, they really did some damage. Then we have some modern collectibles where they're just so scarce and they're not getting reprints that they've kind of held the line. You can see the last sale on TCG Player was November 25th, so this hasn't sold in many months, but it's still $400 because it's just, there are 6 copies at $400 and then it goes up from there. So, and 4 of them are held by this Metaverse LLC guy. And so stuff that's super limited, like I believe technically there was supposed to be 1,000 copies of this, but 800 got released. And that's a small enough production run. It's not going to get reprinted that I think people are more willing to hold on to cards like this because it's not going to just get an identical copy printed. Next up, we have Solemn Judgment Collector Rare. This just got announced for Rarity Collection 2. You can see that it is starting to go down, way down, because people know it's going to get a quarter century secret, it's going to get prismatic collector rare. Why would you hold on to this collector rare? And you then look at the near mint first edition out of Metal Raiders. It's a little bit down from its market price, but it's, really not fallen out a whole lot. And for a long time, people have been, in my opinion, a bit snobby about vintage collectibles, and they say, you can only buy vintage. All modern stuff is trash. And I hate that line of thinking. But Konami is doing their damnedest to try and make all modern stuff, impossible to really, spend your money on, because it's just going to go down to zero eventually. And I'm not an investor. I don't think I'm going to make any money off these cards. I think I'm going to lose a lot of money. I enjoy the chase and, collecting stuff in my binder, but it feels bad to spend money on something when it's going to go down, right? And it's going to go down because there's going to be some reprint of an identical copy. So this was a really ranty market watch, but normally I'm just looking at prices and saying, that's interesting. I wonder if it's going to do this. But for me, or I point out cards that I'm actively collecting. For me, this one was more just talking about the general state of Konami and their printing policies, and how I think it's taking away from some of the collectability of these cards in a way that it doesn't help players. It actually hurts players who pick up these high rarity copies and then have to sell them to collectors. Now they're just getting way less, and obviously it hurts collectors as well, because it just sort of takes away some of the luster of modern collecting. Some of the collecting sphere is, can you generate excitement for these cards, make people excited to pick them up? And I don't think you can when you just print identical copies time and time again. So let me know what you guys think. You might completely disagree with me. I do enjoy the fact that stuff's going down so much that I can just buy more of it, but it is what it is. So it's been your boy Watomarmelon. Check out my main channels. I forgot to mention this in the beginning. If you're watching now, thanks. Let me know in the comments. But check out my main channel collection video. That one's always good to check out. Just released that last month, and it's done quite well. So see you guys.